What's up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode. I'm your host, VideoGameVotary. So today's episode is going to be really special. It's going to be very different. I'm going to do something that I haven't done on the channel before. So as you guys know, this is a Nintendo channel. I'm a Nintendo collector. Obviously, Nintendo's my favorite developer and favorite video game company of all time. But I've yet to rank all of these Nintendo consoles. That's going to be today's objective. I'm going to rank every Nintendo console from top to bottom. Now, I'm going to merge Game Boy Color with Game Boy, obviously, and Game Boy Advance SP is going to be with the Game Boy Advance because they're kind of standalone consoles. I've thought about putting the Game Boy Advance with the Game Boy Color, but I'm not going to do that. And also, in regards to the Japanese consoles, I am going to exclude them from this list because obviously the region that I'm familiar with is the US region. It's not that I don't have those consoles, but I also am not very familiar with those consoles and those exclusive releases for obvious reasons. Now, today's list is not going to be based on sales, and also full disclaimer, this is my list, this is my opinion. It's going to be based on its impact of my personal life. So I'm curious to know in the discussion down in the comment section below, what's your thoughts on it? But no need to argue. These are my opinions and mine alone, and you have yours, and everybody's free to have their own opinion. This list is going to consist of 12 different consoles. It's going to include some handheld consoles as well. Starting out our list at number 12 is the Virtual Boy. The Virtual Boy is a 32-bit tabletop portable video game console developed and manufactured by Nintendo. Released in '95, it was marketed as the first console capable of displaying stereoscopic 3D graphics. The player uses the console like a head-mounted display, placing the head against the eyepiece to see a red, monochrome display. The game uses a parallax effect to create the illusion of depth. Sales failed to meet targets, and Nintendo ceased distribution and game development in 1996, having released only 22 games for the system. The Virtual Boy was released in North America on August 14th, 1995. Its lifespan was only, unfortunately, 1 year, and it was discontinued in August of 1996, selling about 700,000 units. Now, for obvious reasons, Virtual Boy would be the lowest on the list. I personally don't even have a Virtual Boy yet because they are so fragile. A lot of times things are broken. People still kind of want top dollar for them. So what I'm deciding to do, I'm going to look more into the Japanese market to pick me up a Virtual Boy, new old stock, or CIB from over there, where at least I don't have to worry about stuff being broken. The Virtual Boy is region free, so I do look forward to adding it to the collection. I have played it before, but again, I've never owned it. The lack of time that I spent with the Virtual Boy would explain why it's last on my list. Coming in at number 11 is the Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy Advance, otherwise known as the GBA, is a 32-bit handheld game console developed, manufactured, and marketed by Nintendo as the successor to the Game Boy Color. It was released in Japan on March 21st, 2001, and North America on June 11, 2001, in the PAL region, and June 22nd, 2001, in mainland China, as IQ Game Boy Advance on June 8, 2004. The Game Boy Advance is a part of the 6th generation of the game consoles. It was released June 11, 2001. The introductory price for the Game Boy Advance was $99.99, and as of 2023, that's equivalent to $170. It sold over 80 million units. Now, the Game Boy Advance was and is a great console. I just didn't spend a great deal of time with that console, and I feel like I'm basing this list on impact, when I bought it, when I had time to play it, and how much I played it and what it means to me. And it's taking nothing away from the Game Boy Advance because it is a phenomenal console, especially in the handheld market. And they came out with different variants. Obviously, you got the first Game Boy Advance. You also got the Game Boy Advance SP. The cool thing about the Game Boy Advance, they were backwards compatible with the original Game Boy, so you're able to play your original Game Boy games outside of the color ones. You can actually play them in color, so that's actually pretty cool. So shout out to the Game Boy Advance. Coming in at number 10 on my list is the Nintendo Wii. The Nintendo Wii is a home video game console developed and marketed by Nintendo. It was released on November 19th in 2006. It is Nintendo's 5th major home game console following the GameCube, and it's in the 7th generation console alongside the Microsoft Xbox 360 and Sony PS3. The introductory price was $249. It was discontinued in 2013. It sold over 100 million units worldwide. Now, I'm sure the big question is, if you guys are new to the channel, of course, if you are returning subscribers, which I hope that you are, you look to my left, I have a full, complete North American retail Nintendo Wii library. So I'm sure people like, why is it so low on the list? Well, simply put, there's other video game consoles. That's simple. And I decided to go with the Wii because a lot of people just wasn't showing love. It's not that it's a bad console, but it had to fall somewhere on the list. With the over 1,200 games, a lot of people consider them shovelware, but everybody got guilty pleasures, and I do, hopefully, which obviously would take years, try to play through some of these games and also kind of, dispel the rumors that it's full of shovelware. But needless to say, the Nintendo Wii was a success for Nintendo. It was very good as far as party and couch co-op games. Everybody and their mom was playing Wii Bowling and Wii Sports. It's a phenomenal system. It just had to fall where it fall in comparison to the other Nintendo consoles. Coming in at number 9 is the Nintendo 3DS. The Nintendo 3DS is a foldable handheld game console produced by Nintendo. The console was announced in March 2010 and unveiled at E3 2010 as the successor to the Nintendo DS. The system features backwards compatibility with the DS video games. As an 8th generation console, its primary competitor was Sony's PlayStation Vita. It was released in North America on March 27, 2011. It also was followed by different variations of the console. The 3DS XL was released August 19, 2012. The introductory price for the 3DS was $249. The 3DS XL introductory price was $199. It was discontinued September 16, 2020. As of 2022, it has sold over 75 million units. Now, the 3DS is clearly a fantastic console, but I didn't spend a great deal of time with it. It was more so the DS than the 3DS, and that was based on, I have children, so they were getting into gaming, and like the DS was where they kind of started. And DS, again, is phenomenal console. I take nothing away from it, but in regards to where it goes on the list, this is kind of where it is based on impact. And also, some of these consoles fall where they fall based on the way I feel about the other consoles on the list. Coming in at number 8 on the list is the Nintendo Wii U. The Nintendo Wii U is a home video game console developed by Nintendo as the successor to the Wii. Released in late 2012, it is the first 8th generation video game console. It competed with Microsoft's Xbox One and Sony PlayStation 4. It was released November 18th in 2012. The introductory price was $299, or you could have picked up a bundle for $349. It was discontinued January 31st, 2017, selling 13.5 million units worldwide as of 2019. This console is obviously special. Also to my left is a full complete Wii U retail library. Relatively low on the list, but again, in comparison to the rest of the list, this is where it sits. But obviously the Wii U holds a special place in my heart because I have a complete set. It has since amassed a cult following over the past few years. The prices of the games have skyrocketed. People are seeking it out. And honestly, it was one of those things where the Wii U walked so that the Nintendo Switch can run, taking nothing away from the Wii U because it is a phenomenal console. It's also a pretty powerful console as well. It was pretty slept on, and it has some fantastic games. The games run very well on it. Of course, they remade a lot of them be on the Switch, and for good reason. People always say, oh, well, it's a bunch of remakes, but nobody bought the Wii U in comparison to the Switch, so they didn't want to feel like they waste all this time developing games for the Wii U for them not to be played, so they brought them over to the Switch. Coming in at number 7 is the Nintendo DS. The Nintendo DS, retroactively referred to as the NDS or DS, is a 32-bit foldable handheld game console produced by Nintendo, released globally across 2004 and 2005. The DS, as initialism for developer system or dual screen, introduced distinctive new features to handheld games. 2 LCD screens working in tandem, the bottom one being the touchscreen, a built-in microphone, and support for wireless connectivity. Both screens are encompassed with a clamshell design similar to the Game Boy Advance SP. The Nintendo DS also features the ability for multiple DS consoles to directly interact with each other over Wi-Fi within a short range without the need to connect to an existing wireless network. Alternatively, they can interact online using the now defunct Nintendo Wi-Fi connection service. Its main competitor was Sony PSP. The official release date was November 21st, 2004. The introductory price was $149. As of 2023, that's equivalent to $241.95. It sold over 154 million units worldwide, #1 selling handheld console. So obviously the DS has a special place in my heart. If you guys are new to the channel or you are returning and you're familiar, I announced a few weeks ago that I'm going to be starting a new series called Quest DS, where I'm seeking to collect the complete North American Nintendo DS library. So I'm excited to start that series. And low-key, I was always kind of collective for the DS. I just always thought it was special. Like I said, my kids started spending time with that. But that was kind of like their introduction around that time. So they had the DS, and of course, it just always low-key had a special place in my heart. Coming in at number 6 is the GameCube. The GameCube is a home video game console developed and marketed by Nintendo. It was released in Japan on September 14, 2001, in North America on November 18, 2001. It is the successor to the Nintendo 64 as a 6th generation console. It primarily competed with the PS2, Dreamcast, and Microsoft Xbox. Its introductory price was $199. It was continued in 2007 worldwide. It sold worldwide over 21 million units. Now, the GameCube is obviously special. It's also developed its cult following, which there's a trend there. If you notice that some of the underperforming or underwhelmingly sold consoles have now developed a cult following of some of the people probably within my age bracket that are getting that nostalgia feeling with some of these games and stuff like that, and some of the consoles and what it means to them. I remember getting me a GameCube one year because my brothers pretty much had everything else, and I wanted to be different, and I also love the GameCube. But the GameCube is not to be slept on. It is one of the hottest consoles to collect for in regards to retro gaming and video game collecting, and it's amassed a very popular following, and it's one of those consoles that jack the prices up in regards to retro game collecting and in the retro game market. Coming in at number 5 is the NES. The Nintendo Entertainment System is an 8-bit home video game console produced by Nintendo. It was first released in Japan July 15, 1983 as the Family Computer Famicom. It was released in the US test markets as the redesigned NES in 1985 and fully launched in the US the following year. The NES was distributed in Europe, Australia, and parts of Asia throughout the 1980s under various names. As a 3rd generation console, it mainly competed with Sega's Master System. The initial release for North America was October 18, 1985. The introductory price was about $179. It was discontinued August 14, 1995. It sold over 61 million units. Now, the NES was a lot of people's introduction to the video game world. Not to say that it didn't start, but it actually is responsible for saving the video game industry as a pillar in the industry. It set the standard. It was where I got my start. I always like to say me and the NES were born at the same time, and certain things were just meant to be. But the NES is forever goated in my eyes and a lot of people's eyes, and it's where a lot of people kind of start their video game journey. I always, any chance I get, I try to pay homage to the NES, where it started. Good old-fashioned toaster oven. Coming in at number 4 is the Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System, commonly shortened to the Super Nintendo, Super NES, or SNES, is a 16-bit home video game console developed by Nintendo that was released in 1990 in Japan and South Korea, in 91 in North America, 92 in Europe, and in 1993 in South America. In Japan, it is called the Super Famicom. In South Korea, it is called the Super Comboard. It was distributed by Hyundai Electronics. The system was released in Brazil on August 30th, 1993 by Playtronic. In Russia and CIS, the system was distributed by Steepler from 1994 until 96. Although each version is essentially the same, several forms of regional lockout prevent cartridges for one version from being used in another version. The official North American release was August 23rd, 1991. Its introductory price was $199. As of 2023, that is equivalent to $445.16. It was discontinued in 1999 in North America, selling over 49 million units worldwide. Now, the SNES is a fantastic console. That was when I was a little bit older. It was definitely a big jump in terms of graphics and gameplay style and artwork style from the NES to the SNES. I remember playing the SNES a whole lot. That was when I really was old enough to comprehend and understand video games and be able to want and go seek out my own video games and actually put in a lot more time. So shout out to the NES, forever goated. I was about like 7 to 8 years old when the SNES came out, so it's pretty special. Coming in at number 3 is the Nintendo Game Boy. The Game Boy is a handheld game console developed by Nintendo, launched in the Japanese home market on April 21st, 1989, followed by North America and Europe later that year. Following the success of the Game & Watch single game handhelds, Nintendo developed the Game Boy to be more like a portable console with interchangeable cartridges. The concept proved highly successful and the Game Boy became a cultural icon of the 1990s. Its official release date in North America was July 31st, 1989. Its introductory rate was $89.99, equivalent in 2023 to $221. It was discontinued March 31st, 2003. It sold over 118 million units worldwide, including the Game Boy Color. Now, the Game Boy, as you guys know, to me is very special. That was my first very own console. I recently picked up one at SoCal Gaming Expo that is CIB, just like the one that I had back in the day. And if you guys don't know, go back and check out my video explaining that pickup. It's very special because it included the original receipt, which was actually purchased less than 2 minutes away from where I currently live. It used to be an old warehouse club, actually predating Sam's Club, and that's what eventually turned into, but it literally was less than 2 minutes from my house, so it's meant to be for me. Very, very, very sentimental to me. Like, I truly love the Game Boy. So many memories just come back to me, and that's why it's ranked so high on my list. Coming in at number 2 on the list is the Nintendo 64. The Nintendo 64 N64 is a home video game console developed and marketed by Nintendo. It was released in Japan on June 23rd, 1996, in North America September 29th, 1996, and Europe, Australia on March 1st, 1997, the successor to the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It was the last major home console to use cartridges as its primary storage format until the Nintendo Switch in 2017. As a 5th generation console, the Nintendo 64 primarily competed against the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn. Official release date was September 29th, 1996. It discontinued April 30th, 2002, selling over 30 million units worldwide. Now, the N64 is number 2. It's always arguable with me and where I put it between 2 and 1 because, simply put, nostalgia. Back then was when, one, the Nintendo 64 is absolutely the number 1 couch co-op video game console of all time. Around that time I was in middle school, like that time was just unmatched, forever goated. And as much as the PlayStation outsold it, the N64 is undeniable to people. A lot of the graphics hasn't stood the test of time. Anybody at that time, as many people bought PlayStations, probably equal if not more, bought a Nintendo 64. It was the first one to have 4 controller ports built into the console, and it was always as simple as bring your controller over. And it spawned a series of multiplayer games. GoldenEye 007 is one of the greatest games of all time. GoldenEye walked so Call of Duty can run. That was Call of Duty before Call of Duty. The best wrestling games of all time came out on the Nintendo 64. All 4 of them, not up for debate. Go argue with somebody. Those are the greatest wrestling games of all time. WCW versus NWO World Tour, WCW NWO Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, and WWF No Mercy. Greatest games of all time. Then you had games like Wave Race 64, Diddy Kong Racing, Perfect Dark. I can just go on and on about the Nintendo 64 and what it meant to me at that time, preteen going into teenage years. That was some of the best times of my life, and I spent a lot of time. Also, that was the start of one of the greatest fighting games of all time, Super Smash Brothers, which of course the first one was goated, and it also introduced Super Mario Party to the world. You gotta show so much love and respect to pay homage to the N64. Coming in at number 1 on my list is the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch is a video game console developed by Nintendo and released worldwide in most regions on March 3rd, 2017, released in the middle of the 8th generation of home consoles. The Switch succeeded the Wii U and competed with Microsoft's Xbox One and the PS4. It also competes with the 9th generation consoles, which is the current generation, Xbox Series X and S, and the PlayStation 5. So currently its lifespan is running from 2017 to the present. The introductory rate was $299.99. As of June 30th, 2024, it has sold over 143 million units. How about the Switch? How I came to that? I just kind of realized, like, to me, the Switch is just the greatest console of all time. It just does so much. It spawned a whole new series of handheld consoles. It's like the resurgence of it. I remember kind of becoming late on the train for it. I was kind of like, oh, you know, I'll just get it, whatever. But the closer it got to launch, I got more excited. One thing that put me over was saying it was portable. All the pre-orders were sold out. I'm scrambling. The day of release, called a local GameStop. They were tight-lipped with information, but they said they had a couple. I left work and they were like, we got 3 or 4. There was a kid in front of me. At the time when I got to the store, it was about 4 p.m. I waited in line all the way till midnight for the release. That's the only console that I ever waited in line to actually purchase without a pre-order. A lot of other consoles I did get on launch day, but I pre-ordered, so I didn't have to wait in line. I actually had to wait in line to make the purchase. I'm super happy that I did. I completely enjoyed the Switch. I'm going to do an updated Switch collection video here soon. I have over 170 Switch games. I think eventually I would like to go for a set, which probably would be outrageous. There are so many games on the Switch. Just so many things about the Switch. It's just good. Just the fact that you can dock it, undock it. So many great games. All the Zelda titles. My favorite game of all time, Super Mario Odyssey, is on there. And just the Switch is just fantastic, man. I believe it's going to go down as the greatest selling console in history. I believe it's going to run down that PS2. Hoping and praying that it does. Big shout out to the Switch. I don't know what Nintendo has up their sleeve to be the successor to it. It's been 2 generations and it's still going strong. And that goes to show you how great the Nintendo Switch actually is. Let me know down in the comment section below. Do you agree with my list? And if you don't, let me know where you rank your Nintendo consoles from top to bottom. And let me know why. Let's start the conversation down below.